So, Menowars. What? Okay. What do you think that means?
I mean, I think what I always think about is women who I read comments a lot, and I think they're really confused because they see, and these are doctors, right? I mean, some aren't doctors, but that are like really, pro hormone therapy and, talking about that. And then you'll get another doctor who, is more cautious, and I think, with testosterone too, right? Because then we have like other players coming in, like Susan Davis, who's a researcher, and I think she got on social media just to like combat some of all this confusion or just help.
Yeah.
So I think it's, women are just really confused, and I think we always need to think about that. I think
Yeah.
in these wars, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think in any profession, there are a wide range of the way people approach an issue. I know, like, within journalism, there's things I know about some journalists and how they work. And there's journalists are different in different parts of the world. And sometimes they're more precise and sometimes they're more fly by the seat of their pants.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're more forward thinking, like, for example, now if they were using AI and then some old ones don't want to use AI, like that's,
Mm-hmm.
I think in every sector there will be that. And I know in health and science, there's a lot of skepticism. So you have this, like, this has probably always happened where doctors have disagreed with what other doctors are doing, people who are doing extremely well. So there's probably some professional jealousy. And I think you have this added element of social media where you have doctors who they're good at being doctors and they're also good at doing content because they're doing really well. But I don't know
Mm-hmm.
that they're always like 100% responsible with the content they produce. And then, like, anyone who starts to get the hang of social media, which I don't have, I don't think, you double down on what works. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
was just talking to Jessica Barak from what the menopause, and she was saying, you double down on what works. And I was like, oh, I've never done that.
I know.
I have a feel it does well, and I'm like, ooh, like,
Yeah.
so you have, and then you have these people who just dominated the conversation because they're just like working it on all fronts. And so in the UK, we had Dr. Louise Newson, who I noticed right off the bat, who has just like is a force, right? Like, she has all these private clinics, she has an app, she has a charity, she has like, she's the go-to doctor that goes on television still.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a few more. And that's something that exists in journalism where if you get someone who'll come on, you just keep getting them on and then they sort of become a
Yeah.
celebrity. And then that came up. And I noticed when I came on the scene, when I would talk to some doctors in the UK, they weren't completely down with that message that Dr. Newson is like very proud of promoting, which is, hormone therapy is the best thing that you can do for yourself. And at one point, she wanted to rebrand menopause as a female hormone deficiency syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I heard her say that over and, had like a PR firm. I don't think it really took off. So you have two factions there, which exist in the space, right? There's people who are like, this is a natural transition. You need some support to go through it. Then you have the people who believe that, we're sort of screwed without our estrogen and we must replace it. And then you just
Mm-hmm.
see that sort of playing out across the world. And then in the US, Dr. Mary Claire Haver became super, super successful, like worked so hard. And then got this whole cohort, this menopause,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's kind of spread because a bunch of them went to Australia, and then there was some media coverage because there's doctors in Australia who aren't really down with the message of
Mm-hmm.
that sort of menopause. So I think their professional association didn't sponsor the podcast or didn't sponsor the event. So that's just some examples. And then one more thing is, like, you have people don't like when people do well, and they really don't seem to like when women do well. There's a real tearing down. So I think there's an element of this that is really unfair, and especially Dr. Haber. Like, there was a sort of a hit piece in the New York Times, and it was I just didn't think it was fair. Like, it was just
Mhm.
basically, there were doctors going on the record criticizing her approach. And you can criticize anyone's approach. So there's just that too,
Yeah.
like it's like one person who does well. But I think you're right. Like in the middle, women are so women. I went for a walk with a new friend yesterday, and she said, "How do you know what to do? I don't have the first clue when I look online. Like I just don't have the first clue of who to believe." And I was like,
Mhm.
"Well, I mean, it's taken me 5 years, and I just sort of use common sense, but I still get turned around all the time."
Yeah. I think, well, my personal opinion is hormone therapy is there and it's an option for women, but I think it's dominating the conversation. Unfortunately, there's all these other areas I think that are really interesting. Whether or not you're on hormone therapy, it's important to, that women understand like what's happening with them and I just
Yeah.
think that's something that's missed and I don't always think that's the intention of like a Mary Claire, but when I talk to women or I see them posting on Facebook, like some of these groups, it's definitely, I need estrogen for my, brain, bones, heart. And I kind of worry that they're not doing other things, and of course the bones, like the research is straightforward, um, and, the other areas it's very mixed. I mean, it just is, and it doesn't mean that it's very safe and it helps women. And I'm sure on an individual level, it helps a lot of women in their health. But I think to like kind of for women to now feel bad if they can't go on it, I think just, you know, is kind of an unfortunate consequence of just all the attention it's gotten and these wars, we're kind of missing, you know, like you said, the women are just like, what do I do? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think the average woman just doesn't even know or care about that. And the
yeah,
media loves like a cat fight of any kind.
yeah.
So I was also pleased to see the Guardian in Australia. So there's this big event, and I spoke to someone who went to it. She's a coach. She said it was great. She was kind of infotainment at some point. She said like that's what she called it. But the Guardian ended up doing a report about the conflict of interest because something that's driving a lot of this that people don't see is that hormone therapy companies that make hormone therapy are very involved in
Hmm.
events, in le- uh, legislation, lobbying, and that event in Australia, there was a hormone therapy company that was sponsoring it, and there was even a line in this Guardian article that was like, "They're sponsoring it, but they're not influencing the content." It's like, well, I mean, you
Yeah.
know, of course, when you sponsor something, I mean, the GCC Menopause Summit that we had, that I was a part of last fall, was, it was a commercial success. Well, it ended up having like there were some people on the stage that were just like exactly like this, like hormone therapy, you
Hmm.
must have hormone therapy, and
Hmm.
once you get those sponsorships going, you can't, then you get people on, it's just there. It just
Yeah.
is, it
It's
is
hard to
driving.
like, yeah, to I got the throat thing,
You could see.
which no one knows about because that was in our other conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Our secret
yeah,
conversation about our um, clearing your throat, and if that makes you older. Sorry.
yeah. But yeah, it's hard to disentangle that. And, I know as a dietitian, and I'm not even a member right now, but like the food and nutrition conference that they have, there's always, like if Coca Cola is sponsoring and here we are, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's always a thing, you know what I mean? Like the conflict of interest. And I think too, when I know that's a big thing is when people sell their own, like doctors, their own supplements, you know, but also, I mean, I could think of like some supplement ideas. I would never do that, but once you get into a space, sometimes it's like, well, this is missing. We need this. Why don't we?
Yeah.
You know,
Yes, I can
yeah,
already think of things myself. Like, I can't even imagine having the patience or whatever to do it, but I
yeah,
think of things all the time where I'm like, yeah, that's, when I started out, I was trying to think of what I would make hot flashing into. Well, after 5 years, like, yeah, there's definite gaps. And I don't really see that much of a problem with people doing it. Like, that was one of the focuses of the article, the New York Times article on Dr. Haver, was that she has her own line of supplements. But, you get these big audiences. And I don't know. I think a lot of people would if they had the chance, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then it's up to you whether you do it well or how you do it. But, we need options for sure. One thing that really I think that is confusing though is that although some of these doctors are very good at providing the engaging content, I just feel like my journalism hackles get up some of the time, at some of this stuff because some of the stuff I see, first of all, I've noticed this for 3, 4, 5 years, is that I'll see the doctors making videos that have the same messages in them.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me always think that messaging is some kind of talking point that's coming from somewhere else that's being given to them. Because, I remember in 1 week I saw doctors say, like, make a video, compounded hormones are a scam. And then 2 other doctors made videos, compounded hormones are a scam.
Mm-hmm.
Then 1 week I saw 3 different doctors make videos, maybe not in the week, but like in enough time that I was like, natural is a weapon to keep women in their place. That was like, I was like, am I watching, like, what's going on here? And so I don't know. I know I sound like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, but I just find it very weird when all those collective messages are coming. And when there are things like that, like compounded hormones aren't a scam. Like there is some concerns about how they're regulated, but compounded hormones help like millions and millions of women. And a lot of women can't take the sort of FDA approved patch or the oral micronized progesterone. And I've seen these doctors and like, again, we love talking because we're like the only people who care about this stuff, but I'm at home going, I like a really big doctor made a video. Oh, they were all making videos showing their hormone therapy, right? Like, this is my patch. And there was like a song. And this also just sort of to me is like, really? Is this, like, what is this? What is going on here? Like doctors singing and showing their hormone therapy and we're all like getting in on it. Just seems like a sort of, it just doesn't seem like something befitting of this age.
Yeah.
Not that I'm the most mature person by any stretch. But I saw a video, someone who made a video saying compounded hormones are a scam, sometime later joined in on this trend, has their patch, takes their oral micronized progesterone pill, and then grabs their compounded testosterone because that's how you get it. And it's like, what are you talking about? Right? That's kind of why people are confused.
Yeah.
Is that all these sort of, mixed messages.
And I think too, like one thing that works really well on like social media or these simple terms is to make something all good or all bad.
Yeah.
And it's just not true. Like, we know there's a menopause doctor talks really bad about supplements. And I feel, there are a lot of supplement companies that are not, because actually when I moved to LA, I almost got a job at a supplement company, but I couldn't because the evidence they wanted was like, they're like, just get an animal study. And like, I just wasn't comfortable. But there are some really good supplements, but not only that, micronutrient supplements are really needed for a lot of women, not to just take, but also to test your levels. And, I think it's really hard to meet your needs without supplementing, like, especially vitamin D. And so I think when we come out and say supplements are bad and not needed and a scam, you're not really helping people understand, well, how can I use supplements? And some of these companies are, like the Beat It, they're the beetroot juice, they're giving this to researchers. They're just, donating their product. They're not paying for the studies, but they need these products because, and I think that's great. And like, they have some good data behind them, and they're not going to go and like, they're not drugs. They're not going to get those kind of clinical trials, but I don't know. I think I don't, that's why I don't do that much on social media. Cause I'm not one of those like just sound bites. I want to explain things to people and I want to understand it. And I'm okay with uncertainty, but I think a lot of people aren't, or, you know what I mean? So,
and you can see that when you look in some of the comments, you can see people going like, "Oh my God, what do you mean?" Like, what? Oh my gosh! Like, what do you mean? Just sort of shaken at like maybe something they believe not being true, and that's kind of upsetting, And that's the uncertainty. Is like, well, and anything we do, it's like there's a
Mhm.
good, there's a yin, there's a yang. Like that's, supplements. I've recently, I'm a pro supplement person, but I've recently become pretty thoughtful about the fact that I think I made my perimenopause a lot worse multiple times because I was taking supplements that I can't tolerate. Like
Yeah.
I've been finding out after I've gone through menopause, like there's a lot of supplements I can't tolerate. I knew I couldn't take Dong Quai because I don't know if
Mhm.
that's how you say it. That's the first one I tried, and it like it was all wrong. But so I'm a little bit more circumspect about it. But like exactly, it's nuance, and it's like for in some cases it's good, but it's not good for everyone, and everyone just wants that um, definitive answer. And what really cheeses me off about some of the social media creators is that they'll say definitively something like, and in a sort of like condescending way, like it's a no-brainer, it prevents dementia, it's a no-brainer,
Mhm.
it prevents heart disease. And we know there's like nuances, like big nuances. If you already have the early signs of heart disease, maybe
Mhm.
shouldn't be going on certain kinds of hormone therapy. It might exacerbate it, and if you have none, then it might prevent it. Like it's not that
Mhm.
simple. And
Yeah.
so it's really, yeah. And so that's what's going on behind the scenes, I think, in addition to professional jealousy and old guard, new guard.
Yeah.
Oh, they're dodgy. They don't, they
Mhm.
don't, they're holding us back with our, like, we're just trying to help women and
Mhm.
all that. I think that there's,
Something you said reminded me of what you wrote on your um, recent post roundup on the was it Wanda Wright when she was
yeah.
talking on the Mel Robb. That was all over social media. I didn't see the whole episode, but and I read something else that reminded me of that. I think Dr.